Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Andrew.
Hi there. I apologize for being a little bit late. Unfortunately, the public transit is not what it's chalked up to be. But thanks for joining us, Richard. I see Lloyd is here. Michael Rindler is here. I think we're still waiting for our special guest from Pakistan. So give me just a moment, and I'll keep my eye on that while I set up my computer.
Yes, I see Wade, who I haven't met, I don't think, before. Yeah, well, I'm of course really excited about the opportunity to do what would say implementation, field testing, that would be able to validate our role, in the kind of modeling that Michael is doing. I think the concept is here that everyone wants to save the planet. We've got all kinds of crises. We've got urban emergency. We've got urbanization, 3 billion people moving into cities. Half of them will be unserviced in slums. We've got food crisis. Wow, we've got pandemic and climate crisis. So the situation is that we need to be effective in our efforts here. We cannot afford to go down dead-end pathways. So the modeling and the rigor, the scientific rigor and analysis has to go together with sensitivity with community and adaptability of solutions for sure. But what we really need is, let's say if we were absolutely dependent on finding an airplane that would take off, right? We have to get this to lift off. If the constraints, if we're unaware of the constraints, we have to work with gravity, we have to work with lift, we have to work with the fuel, we have to be able to make something fly. And so we have to know all these constraints and issues of whether they're financial, the solar energy, the ability of photosynthesis to convert, the availability of the life processes to turn over, be restored, rewilding, everything that saves the ecology, how we as human beings can stop hurting the planet and start helping instead. So, wow, what a huge challenge. And we have seemingly dozens or hundreds or even thousands of people like us want to come together for solutions. That's also clear. So, in the midst of all the crisis, we have an overwhelming amount of goodwill. Okay, I'll leave it at that. We just need to get going on, let's say, pilot projects that we evaluate, and then we can, base our action on solutions. We need solutions, especially.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. There have been a few other.
Right. Yeah. What I think is one of the keys, what I think could be a focus for all of us is the food. So in other words, when we're talking about a climate-controlled environment and we think about it as a home, that's cultural. So, but when we think about growing plants and growing food and having a regenerative and very smart and energy efficient production of food, everyone needs that. And as I was saying, sort of like an airplane, we need it to be, have a density of and quality and all kind of factors that overcome our limitations of energy and water and nutrient inputs and all of those things, and even labor, right? Which again, if young people find it's 21st century, it's not the victory garden of the Second World War, kind of history. That's a beautiful example. It's inspiring to think about what the last generation did to bring us to where we are now. But what do we have to do now when we face our crises that are so much different, right? 40 years, 50, 60 years ago, population was less than half what it is now. And we're going to see it again move forward further. And we're in a situation where in those 40 years, the ecosystems of the earth have been so damaged. So, and I reassure, you know, that what Michael is talking about is with a sensitivity, although science needs to be involved, at the same time, we are totally interested in all indigenous knowledge, ancient knowledge, you know, learning from nature, right? Which we have lost touch with nature. So therefore, we can be instructed by ancient knowledge that has almost disappeared and bring that into our current, you know, calculations. And we can model them, put them in a supercomputer now. That's a new thing. So innovation is important. But so the first focus that I'm interested in is the closed environment for an ecosystem, not for people to live in. Human habitat is even a bigger challenge. But you know, if we can grow our food locally everywhere, protect it from climate change, protect it from, you know, the disasters that we see are happening everywhere. You know, it's hard to protect from floods, so you know, you have to be smart about location, and that's an issue for migration, right? And more refugees as sea level increases and hurricanes and typhoons become stronger. So you have inundation of coastal areas. Well, so we will have more refugees. We'll have 150 million now. We'll probably have 500 million in maybe a decade. So, you know, unless we address this sensitively and, you know, come together and start with first things first and not culturally clash, right? My home doesn't have to look like your home and so on like that. But, you know, address how do we have our food? Everyone has to eat every day, right? No child should be hungry. So responsibly, how do we address that problem? And we'll have to go past concepts of victory garden or any pre-existing methods for growing, because they are all challenged, drastically challenged. So we don't want elitism and niche solutions for wealthy people, you know, to feel satisfied when a billion people are hungry, right? We need real solutions that work everywhere, very low cost. You know, one of my principles, of course, is dematerialization, you know, and of course, a greenhouse is a model for dematerializing buildings. Yes, you do kind of print them in flat sheets, right? The cover materials, the fabrics. Fabrics are flat sheets. They're almost like printed, you know, weaving, right? Weaving is an ancient technology. So, and now we have plastics and high materials technology. We can create these building envelope with transparency, and almost like there's no weight, you know, of the weight of the building is ridiculously, you know, and the structure is dematerialized too. So of course we have structural engineering and materials technology design, but these are not heavy buildings where you see them pouring out clay around and building what is basically a cave. You know, that's not a building for plants. We need transparency, we get lightweight, we get low cost, and this is modern technology which comes with, you know, these kind of capabilities. I just comment here that we can collaborate without forming a corporation among this team. It would be very probably tedious in a way. I think that, you know, there is such things as consortia, people who come together for purpose. It can also be contractual joint ventures. We have already a lot of nonprofits who can be trustees to implement any kind of plan that we want to execute immediately without, you know, so I think as long as we have a project basis, that we proceed project by project, things can go fast. I would recommend that. I have projects around the world. We have many individual teams. They all can crowdfund. They can all raise money. They can raise money in their own community. What they need to know is what to do. What is the thing to do? And I think that's where the informed decision, what do you do with your money? Because I see people spending money and losing their money because what they intended to do, as we said, good intentions, but don't deliver on a profitability, on a capacity to continue, on a sustainability aspect. We see a lot of technological hype as well out there, especially as relates to food. You know, the whole global system is in a state of dysfunction, you could call it. And we're in the pandemic where food can easily and quickly become global crisis. In fact, the UN is projecting that within months, we would see 300,000 deaths per day of food famine, which is unlike any other famine the world has ever experienced. You know, because, you know, it's similar to the climate problem. You know, people experience bad weather and droughts, but then they recover. But climate change is not like that. Climate change is progressive failure. And progressive failure ultimately results in collapse. That's where our food system is. It would take another session to speak to that, but maybe we should talk about food if one of our goals is food, because I see people want to talk about community. They want to talk about eco-villages and how to create, you know, revive the sense of community in which we need. But food crisis can hit us fast. And community rebuilding, I see it like rebuilding the ecology. The ecology of the planet is destroyed. It will be a multi-generational task to rebuild the Earth's, you know, healthy environment. And we can't take that on now. We have 5 to 10 years to take on a task that can save billions of lives, millions of lives, certainly. But, you know, because we can see that we're on a trend with pandemic accelerating the trend, climate change emergency accelerating the trend, because the food system was already going to collapse, because it is based on petrochemical resources that are exhausted in about 10 to 20 years. So let's talk about the food, you know, dilemma. We talk about the social dilemma. Why not talk about the food? Talk about energy. You know, it's a very serious issue, and water, of course, is going on.
Richard, Joan has to leave. So the short answer is that she voted yes for the consortium. I'm voting yes for it. However, part of the reason for this is because Gerald Bennett with the Housing and Urban Development Department asked that there be one entity through which he could direct funds. So I do intend for there to be some collective impact collaborative where there is one administrative or fiscal agency to deal with solutions.
Yes, that's generally how we would do it. The consortia would agree that one entity would be the administrative agency or entity, and then we would all make our input into that effort. And again, it's better to design it around projects. Even they can start small. There can be numbers of projects as well, not just one. And so that's efficient.
I think the idea, though, is to agree on one entity, and I think EdFu Foundation, for me, makes sense. Andrew is very good at coordinating these types of things. He's the one that brought us together in the first place to have these meetings just last Sunday, and so I'd vote to move forward on that as well.
So again, I'm good for and, not or, as long as we move forward. So one thing we can do is provide through the EdFu Foundation is a base camp technology that we can handle project management. I'm not versed in it, so I'm offering anyone that can to take advantage of it. or someone else to set up a project management tool that we can move forward with.
To address the concern which Richard raised, and by building these Wheel of Life farm schools in global farms and gold mines, we can sort of, seamlessly integrate climate smart technologies into these farms, and then, make sure that the optimum productivity is realized and everybody can enjoy climate smart immunity boosting food locally, so that all the issues related to logistics of shipping these food globally can be sort of eliminated.
Hi, Wade Lilico here from Laverna, Saskatchewan. I was introduced by Heidi Little to come to this conversation, and this fits in with everything that I've done here for the last 15 years. Off-grid livers, and had free food gardens, and a few other initiatives that have worked well here. I've got a project that I've worked on for 3 years that might suit very well what I've heard in this conversation. I'm working on another alternative energy source that involves very simple minerals and salts. So I'm very interested in continuing on the conversation with everybody that's here.